You know, in the high-stakes world of AI and biology, one name has pretty much been king: Google DeepMind's AlphaFold. This was the model that cracked a problem scientists had been wrestling with for 50 years. But now it looks like a new challenger has stepped into the ring. Another tech giant, ByteDance, is here with a totally new playbook. So let's break down how they pulled it off. Okay, take a look at this. It might look like just a tangled mess, but this little microscopic machine is what keeps you alive. It's a protein, and pretty much everything your body does, from fighting off a cold to just thinking a thought, relies on them. The secret to a protein's power? Its incredibly complex 3D shape. For decades, just figuring out that shape was one of the hardest puzzles in all of biology. And that's the big question, right? What if we didn't have to spend years and millions of dollars in a lab to figure it out? Because if you can predict a protein's shape, you can understand exactly how it works. And if you can do that, well, you can start designing new drugs, creating custom enzymes, maybe even finding cures for diseases we once thought were unbeatable. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll quickly touch on why this all matters so much. Then, we'll meet the reigning champion, AlphaFold, before introducing the new challenger and its really clever strategy. And finally, we'll check the scorecard and see what all this competition means for the future. Right, so the main thing to get here is that for proteins, shape isn't just important, it's everything. Shape is function. When a protein gets bent out of shape, when it misfolds, that can trigger devastating diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. That's why predicting the fold correctly is such a huge deal for modern medicine. It's the very first step to figuring out how to fix the problem. And for the past few years, the undisputed champ of predicting those shapes has been Google DeepMind's AlphaFold. I mean, this thing wasn't just a small step forward, it was a total revolution. Back in 2021, it just blew the doors off that 50-year-old problem, achieving an accuracy that was on par with super expensive, time-consuming lab experiments. It was a game changer. AlphaFold 2 was that big breakthrough moment. Its successor, AlphaFold 3, just expanded the whole playbook. Now it can model not just proteins, but also DNA, RNA, and all the little molecules that interact with them. So yeah, this is the absolute state of the art. It's the gold standard that any new contender has to measure up to. Which brings us to our new challenger, SeedFold. It was developed by the Seed Lab over at ByteDance. And what's so interesting is that they didn't just try to build a slightly better AlphaFold. Nope, they came at this entire problem from a fundamentally different angle. And this really gets to the heart of their philosophy. The team asked a super important question. What is the best way to make these massive AI models smarter? Is the answer always just to make them bigger and bigger? Or is there a more intelligent way to scale? Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating. SeedFold's secret sauce isn't just one thing. It's actually a combination of three key innovations that kind of challenge the conventional wisdom on how you're supposed to build these powerful AI models. These are the three pillars of their strategy. We're going to break each one down, but here's the gist. They decided to scale their model wider, not just deeper. They made it way more efficient using a trick called linear attention, and they fed it an absolutely massive custom-built dataset. All right, let's start with this idea of width scaling. Think about it like this. The usual way to make an AI more powerful is to go deeper. It's like adding more and more floors to a skyscraper. But the SeedFold team decided to go wider. They built more rooms on each floor, which basically increases the model's capacity to process a ton of information at every single step. And you know what? Their bet totally paid off. Their research showed that widening the model, giving it more rooms on each level, was actually a more effective and efficient way to get better performance than just stacking more and more layers on top of each other. Next up is something called linear attention. So imagine trying to understand a complicated conversation by analyzing how every single word relates to every other word in the entire thing. It'd be exhausting, right? Well, that's kind of how the standard attention mechanism in AI works. It's super intensive. Linear attention is like a computational shortcut. It's a clever way for the model to focus on the most important relationships without getting bogged down, which makes it way faster and less of a memory hog. Now take a look at this number. 26.5 million. What on earth could that possibly be? That is the number of protein structures SeedFold trained on. But here's the real kicker. The vast majority of them, they didn't come from a lab. They were actually generated by its rival, AlphaFold 2. Think about it. It's like a chess prodigy learning not just from famous historical games, but by playing millions and millions of practice games against a reigning grandmaster. This table really drives the point home. Look at that top line. That's the number of real experimentally confirmed structures that exist in the public database. Now, look at the other two lines. The AI-generated data, what they call distillation data, just dwarfs it. We're talking more than 140 times larger. This massive, high-quality dataset was absolutely crucial for SeedFold's success. So we've got the challenger with this really clever new strategy. But how does it actually perform against the champ? Well, for that, we turn to something called FoldBench. It's a standardized, totally neutral benchmark designed specifically to test these models on a whole range of really tough biological problems. All right, this is the moment of truth. You've got a new architecture, a new scaling philosophy, a mind-boggling amount of training data, but does it actually translate into better performance where it really counts? And the answer, pretty amazingly, is yes. A big yes. According to their paper, across several key protein-related tasks, like predicting the shape of a single protein or how two proteins will interact, SeedFold actually comes out ahead of AlphaFold 3. The challenger well and truly landed a major blow. But the story gets even a little more interesting. See, the researchers actually built two versions. The standard one, which they call vanilla SeedFold, turned out to be a beast at predicting how antibodies bind to antigens, which is, a huge deal for immunology and vaccine design. Meanwhile, the more efficient linear version was the star at predicting how proteins interact with each other and with potential drug molecules. So it's not just one winner, it's like having a specialized toolkit for different critical jobs. So what does all this mean for the future? Well, this isn't just about one model getting a higher score than another. This signals a whole new phase of intense competition and innovation in a field that could literally change medicine as we know it. And believe me, the work is far from over. This quote from the paper itself really highlights how incredibly complex this all is. Basically, when you try to teach one AI to be an expert at everything, proteins, DNA, drug molecules, the whole shebang, it's like you're pulling its brain in different directions at the same time. The next generation of these models is going to have to figure out even smarter ways to learn all these different biological languages at once. And that really leaves us with this final thought. When you have the brightest minds at the world's biggest tech companies all locked in a race to solve fundamental scientific challenges like this one, that competition itself just pushes the boundaries of what's possible. And in a race like that, you have to ask, who's the real winner? I think it's probably all of us.